Inside the world's most notorious prison uprisings, prisons are built to control chaos. But what happens when chaos takes control? From the blood-soaked yards of Attica to the smoldering ruins of Carandiru to Rikers Island teetering on the edge of collapse, this is the untold story of the deadliest prison uprisings in history. Some uprisings began with desperate pleas for dignity, others ignited from pure bloodlust, but they all ended the same way: fire, violence, and lives lost. Today, we go inside the world's most notorious prison uprisings, and what you'll see will change the way you think about justice forever. Why prisons explode. To understand uprisings, you need to understand prisons themselves. They're pressure cookers, overcrowded, underfunded, and often ruled as much by inmates as by guards. The tension builds until one spark sets the entire system on fire. From the outside, uprisings look like chaos. But inside, they're planned, calculated, and often years in the making. The blueprint of a riot. Every prison riot follows a pattern. It starts with whispers in the yard, secret meetings, coded notes passed between cell blocks. Then come the demands: better food, more visits, medical care. When those demands are ignored, desperation takes over. And when the first blow is struck, there's no turning back. From Attica in the 70s to Guayaquil in 2021 to countless forgotten revolts across Africa and Asia, the same story repeats itself, and it always ends in blood. The Attica Prison Uprising, 1971. Our story begins in upstate New York, September 1971, the Attica Correctional Facility. Nearly 2,000 inmates, mostly young Black and Latino men, living in brutal conditions. One shower a week, one roll of toilet paper a month, and almost no medical care. The anger was boiling over. On the morning of September 9th, the spark was lit. A fight broke out. Guards rushed in, and within minutes, hundreds of inmates had seized control of the prison. What followed was 4 days of negotiation as inmates demanded better living conditions, political rights, and amnesty. But behind the scenes, the state was preparing something else entirely: a violent retaking. Blood in the yard. On September 13th, helicopters dropped tear gas over the yard. State troopers stormed in with shotguns and rifles. The next 15 minutes were pure slaughter. 43 people, 29 inmates, and 10 hostages were killed. The Attica uprising became a symbol of injustice, of resistance, and of the state's willingness to kill its own to restore order. But it was only the beginning. A pattern repeats. What Attica revealed was not just one tragedy, but a pattern. Whenever prisons erupt, whether in the U.S., Brazil, Venezuela, or beyond, the cycle is the same: neglect, rebellion, and a brutal crackdown. And each time the uprisings grow more violent, more organized, and more deadly. Now, we dive deeper into the Carandiru Massacre in Brazil, one of the bloodiest prison uprisings in history, and then move into modern-day Latin America, where cartels run prisons like private kingdoms. Welcome to Carandiru, São Paulo, Brazil. Early 1990s. At the time, this city was a battlefield of drug wars, corruption, and skyrocketing violence. And in the middle of it all stood a fortress, Carandiru Penitentiary, home to more than 7,000 inmates, crammed into a space built for half that number. It was one of the most overcrowded prisons in the world. Inside Carandiru, gangs ruled the cell blocks. Drugs, weapons, and contraband flowed freely. Guards barely dared to step inside, and beneath it all was a tension that could ignite at any moment: the spark. On October 2nd, 1992, that spark came. It began with a simple fight between 2 inmates in Pavilion 9, the largest cell block. Normally, the fight would have been broken up by prison leaders themselves, but that day, it spiraled out of control. Soon, entire factions were at war. Gangs clashed, knives flashed, and bodies began to drop. The guards panicked. Outnumbered, they retreated, sealing the gates and leaving the inmates inside to slaughter one another. The police arrive. By afternoon, the situation was critical. Fearing a full-scale uprising, the warden called in reinforcements. What arrived was not a negotiation team, but a small army. Hundreds of Sao Paulo's military police, armed with rifles, shotguns, and tear gas, surrounded the prison. The inmates, many unarmed, begged for negotiations. They waved white shirts, called out for peace. But the police weren't here to talk. They were here to take back control by any means necessary. The massacre. What happened next would become one of the darkest chapters in Brazil's history. The military police stormed Pavilion 9. Gunfire erupted instantly. Shot after shot echoed through the concrete halls. For 30 minutes, it was a one-sided slaughter. Inmates were cornered and executed. Many were unarmed. Some were shot in the back. Others were stabbed by bayonets. By the time the shooting stopped, 111 inmates lay dead. Not a single police officer was killed. The aftermath. The Carandiru Massacre shocked the world. International human rights groups condemned it as an atrocity. Survivors told chilling stories of police laughing as they fired, of executions carried out in cold blood. But in Brazil, the system closed ranks. For years, not a single officer was punished. The commander of the operation, Colonel Ubiratan Guimarães, was convicted only to have his sentence overturned. He later became a politician. The message was clear. In Brazil's prisons, life was cheap. And in the years to come, that message would echo in even bloodier uprisings. The legacy of Carandiru. Carandiru was more than just a massacre. It was a turning point. Out of its ashes rose the PCC, the Primeiro Comando da Capital, Brazil's most powerful prison gang. Born in the cells of Carandiru, the PCC vowed never again would inmates be left defenseless. Today, the PCC controls drug trafficking, extortion, and even influences politics, not just inside prisons, but across entire regions of Brazil. A massacre meant to crush inmate power instead created a criminal empire. A pattern of fire. Carandiru was the deadliest, but not the last. Across Latin America, prisons became battlegrounds. In Venezuela, inmates armed with machine guns seized control of entire penitentiaries. In Ecuador, cartel wars turned prisons into war zones, with beheadings broadcast on live streams. Every uprising traced its roots back to the same conditions: overcrowding, corruption, and neglect. And every time governments responded with the same solution: violence. Transition to the next chapter. But Latin America isn't the only place where prisons have exploded. Around the world, uprisings have left scars on nations, from Africa's forgotten massacres to Asia's brutal crackdowns. And in the United States, uprisings never really stopped. They just took new forms. Next, we go deeper into the modern uprisings that continue to shake prisons today, and we'll uncover why, despite all the bloodshed, nothing seems to change